Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Snowcraft. Today, we're building a wool farm, because in the last episode, I built a whole lot of windmills. I built a nice pretty one up here, as well as some less pretty ones down here, but these windmills have just under 8 stacks of wool in them, and that is a lot. Gathering it once was pretty much fine. I made a nice little sheep pen up here, bred all of the sheep up, and sheared them, and I got my 8 stacks in just under an hour and a half. Not too bad. The problem is I'm going to need a lot more windmills. This little workshop that those 4 windmills are powering is the first of many contraptions I'm going to make with the Create mod, and all of those contraptions will require power. And my current plan is to literally just give them all cube mills, because these things produce a quite ridiculous amount of power for how much space they take up. And if I'm going to do that, I'm going to need a lot more wool. So let's go ahead and build a wool farm. Now, before we get into the nice technical part of this video where I make a ridiculously efficient wool farm with the Create mod, I've got to build a nice little facade for this thing, because I like all my builds to look pretty before they're functional. And I've already gone ahead and started that process with this little pathway that I built in between episodes. It's just a nice little small build, but I think it turned out really great, and it will act as a sort of template for the entire outside portion of this build. Because like every other wool farm I've ever made, this is going to follow the style of have a sheep pen out front with a couple sheep in there that are completely non-functional, and then have a building here, and behind that building will be the actual wool farm where all of the wool is produced. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into a time lapse and get that pretty part built. Well, I'd say that turned out really well, actually. There were a couple of problems I was actually quite worried about this build falling into, but I think I managed to avoid most of them. I've got a nice little sheep yard here, and then, of course, the actual barn itself, where the sheep, for whatever reason, really like to congregate in here. Like, I've moved them in there a while ago, and they haven't come out to this area yet, but you know, whatever, I'm fine with that. Maybe they just want to stay warm in the cold environment. But I think this build turned out really well. One of the problems that I was worried it would fall into was kind of looking cookie cutter, because whenever I start to do you know, a good few buildings in a world, I feel like I always tend to make them all look the same. But I think this one looks significantly different enough, mostly because it has this big opening in the front as opposed to these two that have like proper doors and stuff. And then the other issue was the fences. I feel like fences I make always look bad, but these actually work pretty well. It's just, you know, walls and gates the entire way through, but I think it looks pretty decent. And I've added random fences like on top of them for no reason, but it works. I don't know. I think it just looks cool. And then the last little detail that I feel like I need to point out, because I really love it, and also I stole it from someone, is these little mushrooms, which I've just put on a couple trees. One of my old channel members made these, and I think they look really good. So I'm just super happy with them. I've stuck a couple of them on the trees, even though they don't actually make sense for this environment. It's far too snowy for this type of mushroom to grow on a tree, but who cares? They look good, so that's really what matters. And also, the entire build is pretty much not snowy enough. This entire yard, I feel like, should have way more snow on it for how much snow is on roofs and stuff. Although I will say I did a pretty good job at using lanterns and light and these paths and stuff to make it so no snow will actually accumulate here. The only place that's viable for snow to land is this block, which I've put a little bit of string on, which you can't notice too badly, so I think it's fine. Anyway, I think it's time we move on to the actual functional farm, which is the whole purpose of these cabinets here, is this will be the output of the actual wool farm, which is of course going to go right behind this wall, and I think I should have enough space for it back here, although I haven't actually come up with what I'm going to build for this sheep farm. So let's go hop into a creative testing world and come up with a design for it. This is the vanilla sheep farm design that I pretty much always build, because it works pretty well. You've got an observer looking at the grass blocks. When the sheep eats it, it detects that and sends a signal to the dispenser to shear the sheep, and then that wool gets collected through the floor via this hopper minecart. And it works pretty well. You'd have probably 16 of these all right next to each other, and you get a decent bit of wool from it. But it has one pretty major issue that you can see right now. The sheep has no wool to shear because it needs grass to eat, and the grass isn't grown, because growing grass just takes a while. You could add more and more grass around it, but it still just takes a second. So that's kind of a big problem. A lot of vanilla sheep farms will actually have a piston feed tape that brings fresh grass in to replace the dirt so that the sheep can eat it faster. But those mechanisms are kind of large. Luckily though, with the create mod, we can make these systems a lot simpler, specifically simple enough that I can actually understand how to make it without having to look up someone else's video, which is always great because I really like making my own designs, and this is the design that I've made. We've got a giant disc with kind of 4 segments to it, 2 of which have sheep with clearly not enough grass on them, and 2 of them have no sheep so that the grass can actually regrow, and if we press this button, it switches those segments by rotating this entire disc. So now the sheep have grass to eat, and the dirt has no sheep on it, so we can actually regrow the grass. Then you'll see as these sheep eat grass and regrow their wool, we have a system that is automatically shearing them from underneath the grass. It's a bunch of deployers, all with shears that reach a full block above them, so they shear all of the sheep up here just going around in a circle, and it creates a pretty good amount of wool, and you can have just a ton of sheep in these pens. I've put 5 in each for now, but I would probably have something more like 10, just have a ton of sheep in here, and it would work pretty great. And then of course we can add more sheep until they're actually outpacing the grass growth, because I'm not entirely sure they are, and then all we need to do is put a timer on it so that once all of this grass is regrown, it switches them back so that the sheep have more fresh grass to eat, and it should make for a pretty efficient sheep farm. So let's go ahead and build it. How come every single time I dig out a giant hole like this, I always underestimate how much time it's going to take to dig it, with like the sole exception of like full chunks for slime farms. I always think it's to take way less time than it does. I run through like a full diamond pickaxe doing this, but either way, it should be enough space for not just the sheep farm, but also all of the mechanisms to get the items into those cabinets and to power the whole sheep farm. So I suppose let's go ahead and like build those bits. And I'm going to try something that I think I have maybe never done on this channel. I mean, at least not that I can remember, which is I'm just going to do a time lapse, but I'm just going to like build the thing in survival while doing the time lapse. So we'll see how it goes, if it goes at all, but hopefully it'll work. So let's jump into that. Well, it's done, probably. The weird thing about doing it in survival is I'm not actually 100% sure that this is functional, because, you know, normally in creative world, I just, like, throw some sheep in here and test it out and make sure it works before I build in survival, but I haven't done that, so it probably works, but I've got in all of the components that I'm pretty sure it needs. It's got power, it's got the harvesting thing we had earlier, but now it actually deposits items into an item vault. We've got this little thing, which essentially, if the item vault ever actually fills up, which never happening. This thing can hold 100,000 wool. I don't think it's going to fill up literally ever, but if it does, it'll activate this thing, which will trash some of it just so we don't get wool building up on the ground. Then, of course, it puts most of that wool into the little output cabinet on the other side of this wall. So I think everything's in. It should work, but before we actually put sheep in this thing and test out that theory, I have to add a little bit more to the little rotating mechanism. I've got it in. It works. You press the button, it rotates the whole thing 90 degrees. It's a little bit slower than the creative world, which I think should be fine. The only effect of that is that the sheep, instead of not moving, because like the entity doesn't even realize the floor is moved, they'll all get kind of bunched up against one wall, but they should pretty quickly fix themselves, so I think that should all be functional. But obviously, I can't have this just be a button. I'm not going to sit here and push this whenever I notice that the sheep have eaten all of their dirt. I need it to be automatic. So I've put a little timer on it. It's just a pulse repeater, which is a redstone component the create mod adds in. Essentially is a repeater, but you can set the time to up to just a full hour, which I find kind of funny, but very useful, and 2 repeaters to give it kind of a constantly refreshing signal, and the result is this thing just goes as often as whatever you set this to. Currently it's going every 5 seconds, which is obviously too fast, so the grass isn't really going to have time to regrow, but if I set it for like an hour, it's definitely going too slow, and the sheep will run out of grass way too fast, so we need to find a happy middle ground there, and I could just say, yeah, about 5 minutes, and that would probably be fine, but I want this farm to be really efficient, so instead of doing that, I'm going to do some tests. And to do those tests, I've hopped into a creative copy of the world, and I've gotten rid of most of the farm that I've just built. All that remains is the grass growing patches, and they resemble the state that the sheep have just decimated all of the grass on them. So what I'm going to do is unfreeze the game's random tick, which will allow the grass to actually grow, because currently it's paused right now. And then every minute after that, I'm going to record how much grass has grown so we can see how long it takes for the grass to fully regrow. So now it's time to get my stopwatch ready and literally watch grass grow. This is going to be really boring. Do you want to know how long that took? I just spent an hour and a half of my life sitting watching grass grow in a video game. But luckily, you guys don't have to do that. You just get to see the data. Look at this graph. You can see some really interesting things on this thing. I like the flat spot in Trial 4 where I totally just forgot to unpause the game, but also some more important things, like by the 20-minute mark, literally everything is always fully grown. So we could just set the timer to there, but that would mean things like Trial 2 here that is somehow done by the 9-minute mark would just be sitting there for 11 minutes with fully grown grass that the sheep don't get to eat. So instead, we're going to aim for somewhere in this region, the 8 to 10-minute mark, and I think I'm going to go for 9 minutes, which is right here, because most of the grass is like almost fully grown at that point, so we won't be missing out on too much most of the time. Of course, we'll still get the occasional time where we get lucky and we're just waiting with fully grown grass, or the opposite, where the grass doesn't actually fully grow by the 9-minute mark, but it should be, on average, a pretty good solution. So with that timer going, let's get some sheep in this thing. Now you might be thinking to yourself, how much time investment am I about to put into deciding how many sheep go in each of these pens? And the answer is absolutely none, because the thing is, I don't really need to. I just did all of those tests with the assumption that when this grass rotates, the plot is entirely dirt. So I'm going to put 2 sheep in each pen and then breed them to the point that when it does rotate, the plot is at least mostly dirt, and that should be plenty good enough because I just did a whole bunch of tests with that assumption. So I've got some wheat, I've got some sheep, and I'm going to go ahead and breed these guys for a while. Okay, that took a while, but I've got 40 sheep in total, 20 in each pen, and it seems like that is a pretty good number. Whenever the whole grass disc rotates, this bit is like mostly dirt, and it's never going to be 100% dirt just because of the fact that the grass can still grow while it's in the sheep pen, so the chances of a little bit of grass growing and then it rotating are pretty high, but it generally is mostly dirt, so that's good enough for me. And of course, in the time that it took me to breed those sheeps, we have more than 18 stacks of wool, which is more than I'm actually going to use in the near future. So the farm's definitely good enough. I just hope that that automatic trashing thing works, because this is going to overproduce way too much wool. So now it's time to move on to the next project, which is actually going to use some of this wool. Obviously, most of it is for the gigantic cube windmills that I'm using to power all of my create mod contraptions, because these things use almost 2 stacks of wool each, which is a ton. But I have one other thing that I always make a wool farm for, and that is my nether hub. I always make the exact same nether hub. In pretty much every single world that I do, I make the same thing, because the nether has one pretty big flaw, that being that it sucks. But the thing is, if we head all the way up here, way up this ladder, and then even further up, we get to the nether roof, which still sucks, but a lot less because there's no mobs or literally no danger at all up here. So what I tend to do is I like to make a network of carpets that goes to all of the different places I need, and then I just have holes in the bedrock to get back down, and it ends up looking pretty good. But that much carpet requires a whole lot of wool, so it's a good thing that I have a wool farm. But before we get building on that, I have to actually get on top of the nether, which, considering I'm blocked by bedrock, is not the easiest thing to do. Luckily, we have glitches. I have a bunch of random stuff in this chest, and this is everything you need to not only glitch yourself on top of the nether roof, but also break a piece of bedrock on the nether roof. So let's go do that. I've already gone ahead and made this ladder that takes us all the way up to the top, and I've done some digging up here to find 2 very specific spots in the kind of random pattern in the bedrock. One, I've marked with a torch right here. This is the piece of bedrock we're going to break. It's special because it's only 1 block of bedrock thick, and there's no extra bedrock beneath it, which makes it very easy to punch a hole in the bedrock there. And the other spot I found is a little bit further over here and took me way longer to find, but it's this. We have 2 spots where the bedrock is 1 thick, where I can glitch up into the top. If we put a minecart on a rail right up against that one, we can get in this minecart, get out, and theoretically place a boat up there, and then get in the boat. It's a little chaotic, but it does work, and now we're kind of trapped up here. Luckily, I also brought all of the supplies needed to break a piece of bedrock. I just have to find that one that I marked out earlier, but luckily I have free camp, so it's not that hard. So what we do is I place a piston on top of the spot, get some obsidian on either side of it, a redstone dust there, lever there, 2 TNT there, and a trap door here. And what I'm about to do is turn this on, which will activate these 2 TNT as well as the piston. And these 2 TNT are going to go off in a really janky way that can behead a piston, and then we're going to glitch it so that that beheaded piston is facing downwards, which will cause this bedrock to be like, I should have a piston head in me, and it'll just disappear. At least that's theoretically how it works. I'm not actually, I didn't come up with this. I don't really know who did, but I brought enough for 4 tries of it, because it's kind of hard to do. Hopefully, we just get it in 1, which happens occasionally, because I do have an auto-clicker, which makes it significantly easier. And there we go. We got a nice hole in the bedrock. And now that I have a nice easy way to get up and down, I'm going to go ahead and move my nether portal up there. Because the thing is, I don't actually use my nether portal to get to the stuff in the nether nearly as much as I use it to get to other nether portals that are in really far away places in the overworld. So I'd rather have it up on the roof where all the rest of my nether portals will be than down near the bottom where all the nether access stuff is. And there we go. We got a nether portal up on the roof. I've gone ahead and themed it for snow and ice because, that's pretty representative of my base. And I've just realized I didn't actually break the nether portal down at the bottom. So I'm kind of curious which one the nether portal in my base will actually take me to now. I'm going to guess the one at the bottom because it's, I think, much closer in terms of the y-axis. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but once this one's gone, it should link up properly, and I won't have to worry about that. Okay, try number 2. Let's go back through this one, and I can't imagine breaking the one at the bottom would cause this to desync, but I'm checking it anyway. And then go back through here, and hopefully we end up on top of the nether instead of at the bottom. If it regenerates a portal at the bottom, I would be very annoyed. There we go, all linked up. And now that we have easy access to the top of the nether, let's start building some stuff up here. First order of business is to make the way up and down more easy, because currently I have a pile of snow here, because that's the blocks I have on me, and then you have to go all the way down this ladder, which takes forever, and especially going back up it takes even longer, so I want to make a nice easy way to get up and down really quickly, and the way to do that is with a create mod elevator. And luckily, those are just about the easiest thing to build ever. I've gone ahead and constructed one, and I think all I need to do is turn on the little windmill there, turn on the elevator pulley, and we should have a fully functional elevator. I tried to make it look a little pretty, even it's in the nether roof, so it's kind of a wasteland, and I did manage to make it fit in a 1-block hole. All of this stuff is just ornamentation. If we hop up here, squish, does this not work? This worked when the blocks were solid. Oh god, it doesn't squish you when the blocks aren't solid. Oh, because the problem is, if I go into free cam here, or no, that's not free cam. If I go into free cam here and I turn on hitboxes, I don't quite fit in the elevator. But you know what? We're going to try it anyway. Down to level 0. I think it's just going to leave without me, right? Or maybe if I hop up here. Oh god. That's not good. I didn't expect it to go that wrong. Okay. Oh god, what did I have on me? Because I'm pretty sure that all just went in lava. Okay, I've got my tools and my armor replaced, although I did lose some of the create mod tools, like the wrench and the goggles that I'll have to remake later. Those are a little bit harder to do. But I don't think the elevator itself should be fine. It should, obviously doesn't work, so fine is a little bit of an overstatement, but it shouldn't have broken. I don't think. I should be able to just call it right back up here. And clearly, I need to make it so that I actually, fit properly in this elevator, because that did not work well. I think what I need to do is make it 1 block taller. That way I can actually, properly stand on top of that. Or maybe even just remove this and replace it with, a trap door. If I just do that, I can now, stand here properly. 1 minute. You're just going to do this for no particular reason, right? I can even probably have that like that. Reassemble the elevator. And now, yeah, look at that. Okay, that works. It looks significantly jankier now because the elevator is not. It's connected technically. Oh hey, some of my stuff survived. I guess I didn't really need to remake my tools that promptly, but look at that, perfect elevator. It does need one more stop, though, because this gets me down to, the base of the nether, but there's one more place I want to have access to, and that is the very bottom of the nether for netherrack mining, or not netherrack, ancient debris mining. So I'm going to go ahead and make a little elevator shaft that takes me down under this lava. It looks like I'm going to have to fill in a little bit of that lava lake. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do that, but I'll figure it out. Fire resistance potions, obviously. The only reason I didn't think of that earlier is because I don't have a brewing stand or like blaze rods at all, but turns out the Create mod can do brewing for you. If you have a mixer with a heated blaze burner, you can just throw all of the ingredients in the correct order, and it'll make potions for you. So I'm going to make some 8-minute long fire resistance potions, and that should do the trick. You also get 4, apparently, from doing that, which is weird considering it's easier than normal brewing, but you get more out of it for some reason. I'll take it. And now I can just take one of these and do my underwater lava building. I just realized I just jumped off a bridge, didn't I? I don't really have a way back up. I can probably swim. Yeah, there's a way back up over there, but I should be quick anyway because I only have like, I guess it's a full 24 minutes of fire resistance, but you know, it's still stressful swimming in lava. Yeah, I'm definitely fine. I didn't even have to use more than like 1 potion for that, but we've got a nice solid cobblestone tube, which I'll hollow out to make the actual elevator shaft, which I'm going to go ahead and do. I'm going to finish up the whole rest of this elevator shaft, then we get all the way from the top to all the way down to the bottom in record time. And also, in record safety, if we head all the way down to netherite level, I've cased the entire channel in cobblestone. The one gap in it, which is right there, is the just like main area of the nether, and then the very, very bottom also isn't encased in cobblestone, but everything else is completely ghast-proof, completely fireproof, completely safe, which I personally like. And there's nothing really here at the bottom of the nether, except for some bedrock, but this is where I'll be mining for ancient debris in the future. Might even do some of that in between episodes. I'd say this elevator works pretty well. I can easily get to this level of the nether and get to the bottom, and of course I can get all the way up to the top, where I'm going to build my nether hub. Which, of course, is the project that actually kicked off this elevator, so let's get building on that. You know, I generally try to record a clip, like, halfway through doing a big project that I don't do in a time-lapse, but, like, what was I supposed to record for this? It's just me placing a bunch of carpets on top of the nether. It took a while because I had to mine a ton of obsidian, but realistically, it's kind of boring, although it's turned out quite satisfying in that I have one portal in, like, each direction. We've got a desert there, we've got a old-growth taiga over there, and we've got just a plains biome there, and it's kind of funny, the only one of these I actually really needed was the old growth taiga, but then I wanted to make the pathway out of green wool, so I went to a desert for cactus, but then I wanted to make this one out of yellow wool, so I went to a plains for dandelions. So I ended up with 3 different paths, but I'm kind of glad for it because it makes a nice little like 4-pointed star kind of thing. And I'll be adding more to this as I need more portals, obviously. But for now, I'm going to leave it here. And I think I'm also going to go ahead and end this episode here because those were the 2 projects I wanted to complete today. We got a wool farm done, and I have a nether hub all up and operational. So now I never have to walk 6,000 blocks for 3 mangrove roots ever again, which is something I had to do like 2 episodes ago at this point, I think. But yeah, for now, like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you like it, and I'll see you next time.